What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another episode right here on the Piscifun YouTube channel. Today, we are going to be talking about my favorite 3 baits to catch post-spawn walleyes. So, that early run is done. The walleyes are no longer pre-spawn. They're done spawning, they're wrapped up, and that means they're gonna put the feed bag on. These fish are gonna move back down these river systems, back out to these lakes, and they are going to position to eat. Now, when they position like that, it's critical to have the right setups. Sometimes, even though they're hungry, they can be a little fussy. We're gonna show you some baits that are great for crushing them when they're active, and we're also gonna show you a setup that is perfect for crushing them when they are inactive. We're gonna give you the reel, the rod, the line, the bait, the setup, everything you need to know to go out there and catch them. So stay tuned, we're gonna jump right in. Okay, we're in the boat. Now let's go ahead and jump right in and let's start talking about those top 3 of my favorite lures to catch those post-spawn river walleyes. Now, like I said before, feed bag is on. These fish are ready to eat. They're done doing their thing for the spawn, and now we're gonna go out and we're gonna catch them. My very first bait is pretty common. We are going to go ahead and just use a simple jig, and we're gonna tip that with a minnow. We're just gonna take like a large tuffy or a large fathead. We're gonna thread that by taking the hook, putting it in the mouth, and come out behind the head. I see a lot of people who still hook their minnows through the lips, and oftentimes they wonder why so often that their bait falls off on their presentation. You know, when you're fishing a river, there's a lot of debris. There's rock, there's wood, you have the current fighting against you, you have all these things happening, and a lot of times for walleyes, you're also snapping your rod. So that's a lot of pressure on that little minnow's lips if you're using that hook. So again, make sure you go in the mouth, come back behind the head and pop that hook through, and that jig is going to be perfect. Now, normally on the rivers, like on the Wisconsin River, you're looking for little calm areas with current eddies or breaks, usually around or behind wood. And what that allows you to do is you go in and you take your rod and you just pitch that jig up into that little current seam or current eddy, and that's where the current doesn't have a ton of effect on your drift because everything in an eddy just kind of sits there. So you're gonna go ahead and pitch that jig in there, and usually what you're gonna find is you're gonna find hungry walleyes waiting for something to float past their mouth as they use that eddy as kind of a feeding circle. When it comes to a jig, I'm gonna have probably a 10-pound fluorocarbon leader here, and that's gonna go to a main braid line of 10 pounds. I like the high vis, that way I can see my line jump if I get a bump on a drift. And you'll see here, guys, that I'm actually holding the brand new Carbon X Piscifun spinning rod series. So been using these for about 2 years now for the prototypes, and we were finally able to drop them. So very excited. Right now we have limited quantities available, so don't be too upset if you go in there and you say, oh, they're sold out. We are working on getting that warehousing figured out. Unfortunately, it's been a nightmare for just about everything right now when it comes to warehousing, but we are working on that, guys. Right here, what I have in my hands is a 6'9" medium. The 6'9" medium has the perfect action for a jig, being that this Carbon X is a IM8 Japanese Toray carbon fiber. That is a super, super sensitive blank. So you're gonna feel every little bump, every little tick, but that 6'9" medium is a perfect length and perfect action when you're fishing a jig. It's gonna allow you to pin that fish and also keep that fish on as you're fighting it through the current back to the boat. When it comes to your reel, really simple, 2,000 or 3,000. Most people prefer a 2,000, just a little bit lighter, but you want something that has a smooth drag. This one here is the Viper X, but I also use the Carbon X a ton for this setup as well. That is what you're gonna do, guys, when you pick up and you fish a jig for post-spawn walleyes. All right, lure number 2 in our lineup is going to be, this is a floating Rapala. Okay, you can see this is the 2-hook model here. Real traditional bait. Beautiful profile for fishing the river. They really like those chrome blue, chrome gold, and of course orange is always a killer on the river systems. But basically this lure, again, same thing. When you have those walleyes that are tucked up against that shoreline, that are kind of sitting in that calmer water, what you're gonna do is you're gonna cast this, you're gonna let your Rapala kind of swing down current, and as you get into those eddies, you're gonna start retrieving, and that lure is gonna kind of bump the bottom, and that lip right there is what helps that. It kind of bumps the bottom, bumps off the sticks, bumps off the rocks, and that walleye is gonna trail it, and he's gonna nip at it like this. Normally, that's how they eat it. They'll come up behind it and they'll inhale it. And then once you get this thing behind the boat even, what you're gonna do is kind of just jerk, and then let it slide back with the current. and then jerk, jerk, and then let it slide back with the current. And what that's gonna do is just gonna entice those fish to bite. This is definitely a deadly technique because there's a lot of different ways to fish it. You can slow roll it, where you're just slow rolling it and that thing's just kind of doing its thing, just wobbling through the water column, or you can use like a jerk bait, and where that thing is darting side to side and then it comes to a rest. So it really just depends on the situation you're in, how much current you have, and what style of fishing you're doing. But overall, it is a deadly, deadly bait. When it comes to line, same thing. I'm using that 10-pound fluorocarbon leader to a 10-pound braid main line. That 10-pound braid, the nice thing about it is it's plenty strong enough to fight walleyes, but the nice thing about that 10-pound, it has a very thin diameter. So that thin diameter is going to allow you to get those nice long casts when you're looking for them. This one, I have the Piscifun Serpent set up. This is the 610 medium. So this is also a great rod, that 610 medium, just a little bit longer, a little bit more casting distance for that lightweight bait right there. It does have BBs, so you will be able to bomb it out there a ways, but it is a little bit lighter. So having a little bit of extra length on a rod, it not only helps with battling fish, but it also helps with having that longer cast. Again, same deal when it comes to my reel. I'm rocking either a 2000 or a 3000. Either way, you're gonna have a perfect setup for walleye fishing in the river for those post spawners. Now, last, but certainly not least, is going to be this setup right here. This sometimes is called a river rig, sometimes it's called a Lindy rig. So basically what you have here, guys, is a no snag sinker. Show you that real quick. No snag sinker. And this is going to slide like this up and down your main line. Okay, and it's gonna stop here at a barrel swivel. And then we've got our 10-pound fluorocarbon. I even go to 8 pounds sometimes for this if they're finicky. And that one's about 3 feet long. And that comes to a colored hook right there, just a little walleye hook, little octopus hook. And basically what you're doing with this is you're casting it out. You're gonna put a minnow on that hook. You're gonna cast it out and you're just gonna kind of hold it up in the current and just kind of let that bait glide down with the current until you get to the back of the boat, and then you're gonna kind of hold. And you just kind of hold that. You might give it some pops and some twitches and pulls just to get that minnow working up into the current and then back down current. And for those finicky walleyes on those days where they're tough and they don't really want to chase a bait, having that minnow just kind of sitting there right in front of their face, it's really hard for them to resist. And when they're on post spawn, they certainly have days where they're not feeding heavily, just like any other time of the year. Sometimes they're tired, they're beat up from spawning, they just want an easy meal. And that minnow hanging back behind there, you know, when this is on bottom, that minnow is gonna hang perfectly in that current, probably 6 inches to a foot off bottom, and it's right in that walleye's strike zone. So this Lindy rig is gonna be perfect. As far as your line, like I said, 8-pound I like to go to if they're finicky. Otherwise, I just use a 10-pound leader. Same thing with the braid main line, and then same thing with your reel, 2000 or 3000. But when it comes to the rod, this is where I step up to something a little bit different. So the rod that I have here is another Serpent series rod, but this one is the 7'2" medium light. Now the reason I step it up with this is, number one, you have that sinker on the bottom. So you want that longer rod, so when you do that sweeping hook set, you're able to pick that sinker up and get your pressure down to the point of that hook that's in the walleye's mouth. So that longer rod helps you do that. And then second, that 7'2" has a nice flex with that medium light. So it gets a nice bow in it before you set the hook, and it makes sure that you're able to penetrate that bony walleye mouth. So that little bit longer rod, a little bit more sensitivity with that backbone is gonna help you hook up with these fish a lot with this technique. So if you're out there and you're struggling with that jig and you're struggling with, you know, a jerk bait or something like that, definitely pick up the Lindy rig and don't be afraid to throw that around and drift that behind the boat. It's definitely going to catch you more walleyes during that more pressured, difficult post-spawn time frame. Well guys, that is a wrap for today's video. I hope the tips in this video help you out. I hope you're able to go out on the rivers after this and go and catch some post-spawn walleyes. A lot of the limits get lifted now where you're able to keep some fish on some of these river systems that you weren't able to keep before. So it's a good time to go out and use these techniques and put some eaters in the freezer. If you have any questions on these techniques, guys, go down below in the comment section and just leave me a comment and I will go ahead and I will answer those questions for you. Again, there are lots of different ways to catch these fish, but these are just my personal favorites that I've learned through fishing with walleye pros, guides, friends over the years. I just feel like they are the ideal setup to go catch those post-spawn walleyes out on the rivers. If you guys like this video, go down below, hit that like button for me. Also, make sure you smash that subscribe button, guys. We got a super cool giveaway coming, guys. So make sure you subscribe. You want to be here when that one drops. As always, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.